ask anything or make any comment at the end.
My question is the flow of consciousness. How consciousness moves from one spirit to another spirit.
Well, consciousness means a subject-object relation.
Subject-object relation.
Yes.
So one's consciousness is moving to the another consciousness.
No, consciousness means there is something which is conscious. Consciousness is the property of a soul, of Atma.
Yeah.
That's why
so
they have the term in Veda,
death,
they call it Chit Surya, is like the sunshine coming off of the sun orb, you know? Chit Surya.
Yeah.
So consciousness is coming from a soul. Not that consciousness is moving by itself, it's one property of the soul. So the movement of
how the
consciousness,
soul moves, how the spirit moves.
yes, this is through desire.
Yeah.
Through the desire. Now, most of the time in the material world, we're used to thinking of movement in terms of space and time, but these are finite qualities. The soul is beyond space and time. The soul is eternal. Both space and time are finite. In the Vedas, it's told at the end of the material manifestation, all the material qualities are destroyed by Lord Shiva, the dance of destruction, and then they're taken back into Mahavishnu, who is an expansion of Krishna. So the soul has some freedom that is beyond time and space. For the soul, movement doesn't just mean moving a physical body. That's only one very small part of the soul's movement. Beyond the body, the soul is always desiring, always hankering for something. When its desire is for something exploitive, where the soul wants to assert its finite self and dominate over its environment, then it comes to the material world and experiences samsara. But when the soul recognizes that it's only seeking fulfillment from temporary things, and it starts to seek fulfillment from eternal things, this is when it turns to Bhagavan, to Krishna consciousness. And this is what leads it beyond the material world. And now desires are only fulfilled through relationship with the eternal. The eternal means Bhagavan. So in this way, the evolution of consciousness is a development towards attachment to fulfillment from what is permanent or the eternal. And that can only be cultivated in a systematic way through Bhakti Yoga. And that's the topic of what Bhagavatam, this scripture we're reading today, is all about.
Okay.
So we'll continue to read, and then any other questions you please ask, Prabhu. So first we'll start paying our Dandavat Pranam. By the instruction and grace of our spiritual master, Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa, Sripad Bhakti Madhava Puri Mahārāja, we're here reading Srimad Bhagavatam. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Canto 4, the creation of the fourth order, chapter 13, text 40. Sashara Shanam Udyamya Mrgayor Vana Gochara Antyasador Mrgandinan Venosav Ityaruja Jana. After fixing his bow and arrow, the cruel boy used to go to the forest and unnecessarily kill innocent deer. And as soon as he came, all the people would cry, "Here comes cruel Vina! Here comes cruel Vina!" Purport. Kshatriyas are allowed to hunt in the forest for the purpose of learning the killing art, not to kill animals for eating or for any other purpose. The Kshatriya kings were sometimes expected to cut off the head of a culprit in the state. For this reason, the Kshatriyas were allowed to hunt in the forest. Because this son of King Anga, Vina, was born of a bad mother, he was very cruel, and he used to go to the forest and unnecessarily kill the animals. All the neighboring inhabitants would be frightened by his presence, and they would call, "Here comes Vina, here comes Vina." So from the beginning of his life, he was fearful to the citizens. Text 41. Akridhe kridato balan, vayasyan ati dharuna, prashaya niranukrosha, ashumaram amharayat. The boy was so cruel that while playing with young boys of his age, he wouldn't kill them very mercilessly. He would kill them very mercilessly as if they were animals meant for slaughter. Text 42. Tam vichaksya kalam putram sashanar vividhar nripa yadhana sashitum kalpo vrisham asit sudormana. After seeing the cruel and merciless behavior of his son, Vina, King Anga punished him in different ways to reform him, but this was unable to bring him to the path of gentleness. He thus became greatly aggrieved. Text 43. Prayenabhyarchito devo ye prajagriha medina kad apatya bratam dukam ye navindanti dorbaram. The king thought to himself, persons who have no son are certainly fortunate. They must have worshipped the Lord in their previous lives so that they would not have to suffer the unbearable happiness caused by a bad son. Purport. It is said that a married couple must have a son, otherwise their family life is void. But a son born without good qualities is as good as a blind eye. A blind eye has no use for seeing, but it is simply unbearably painful. The king therefore thought himself very unfortunate to have such a bad son. Text 44. Yatha papya sikiritir adharmascha mahanranan yato virhodha sarvesham yatha adir anantaka. A sinful son causes a person's reputation to vanish. His irreligious activities at home cause irreligion and quarrel among everyone, and this creates only endless anxiety. Text 45. Kastam prajapadesham vai mohabandhanam atmana pandito bahumanyeta yad artha kleshadha griha. Who, if he is considerate and intelligent, would desire such a worthless son? Such a son is nothing but a bond of illusion for the living entity, and he makes one's home miserable. Text 46. Kad apatyam varamanye sad apatyach chucham padat nividyeta grihan martyo yat klesha nivaha griha. Then the king thought, a bad son is better than a good son, because a good son creates an attachment for home, whereas a bad son does not. A bad son creates a hellish home, from which an intelligent man naturally becomes very easily detached. Purport. The king began to think in terms of attachment and detachment from one's material home. According to Prahlad Maharaj, the material home is compared to a blind well. If a man falls down into a blind well, it is very difficult to get out of it again and begin life again. Prahlad Maharaj has advised that one give up this blind well of a home, this blind well of home life, as soon as possible and go to the forest to take shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. According to Vedic civilization, this giving up of home by vanaprast and sannyas is compulsory. But people are so attached to their homes that even up to the point of death, they do not like to retire from home life. King Anga, therefore, thinking in terms of detachment, accepted his bad son as a good impetus for detachment from home life. He therefore considered his bad son his friend since he was helping him become detached from his home. Ultimately, one has to learn how to detach oneself from attachment to material life. Therefore, if a bad son, by his bad behavior, helps a householder to go away from home, it is a boon. Text 47. Evhamsa nirvina manonrapagrihan nishita uttaya mahodayodayat alhabda nidro nupalakshito nirbir hitvagato vina subham prashuptam. Thinking like that, King Anga could not sleep at night. He became completely indifferent to household life. Once, therefore, in the dead of night, he got up from bed and left Vina's mother, his wife, who was sleeping deeply. He gave up all attraction for his greatly opulent kingdom, and, unseen by anybody, he very silently gave up his home and opulence and proceeded towards the forest. Purport. In this verse, the word Mahodayodayat indicates that by blessings of a great soul, one becomes materially opulent. But when one gives up attachment to material wealth, that should be considered an even greater blessing from the great souls. It was not a very easy task for the king to give up his opulent kingdom and young, faithful wife, but it was certainly a great blessing of the Supreme Personality of Godhead that he could give up the attachment and go out to the forest without being seen by anyone. There are many instances of great souls leaving home in this way in the dead of night, giving up attachment for home, wife, and money. Text 48. Vijnana nirvidyagatam patim praja purohitam matya suhid ganhadaya vichikyur urvyam atishoka kattara yatha nigudham purusham kuyogina. When it was understood that the king had indifferently left home, all the citizens, priests, ministers, friends, and people in general were greatly aggrieved. They began to search for him all over the world, just as a less experienced mystic searches out the supersoul within himself. Purport. The example of searching for the supersoul within the heart by the less intelligent mystics is very instructive. The absolute truth is understood in three different features, namely impersonal Brahman, localized Paramatma, and the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Such kuyogina, or less intelligent mystics, can, by mental speculation, reach the point of the impersonal Brahman, but they cannot find the supersoul who is sitting within each living entity. When the king left, it was certain that he was staying somewhere else, but because the citizens did not know how to find him, they were frustrated like the less intelligent mystics. Text 49. Alakshayanta padhavim prajapter hathodhyama pratupashrityate purim rishin sametan abhivandya sasravo nyabhedayan purava bhartrivipalam. When the citizens could not find any trace of the king after searching for him everywhere, they were very disappointed, and they returned to the city, where all great sages of the country assembled because of the king's absence. With tears in their eyes, the citizens offered respectful obeisances and informed the sages in full detail that they were unable to find the king anywhere. Purport. Thus end the Bhakti Vedanta purports of the 4th Canto, 13th chapter of Srimad Bhagavatam, entitled Description of the Descendants of Dhruva Maharaj. And we will continue from chapter 14, the story of King Vina, on Monday. And this way we have some time for any other comments or questions that the assembled devotees and participants may have. If not, then we can conclude. Jaya Vishnupad Paramahamsa Sripad Bhakti Madhava Puri Mahārāja ki Jai. Jai Srila Prabhupada, Srila Guru Maharaj, Srila Gurudev, Srila Acharya Dev, Srila Shanta Maharaj ki jai.
Jai.
Jai Ruga Guru Varga ki jai.
Jai.
Assembled devotees, all glories to the worldwide devotees. Sama Bhakti Veda Vrinda ki jai. Jai Navadvip Dham ki jai. Nrsimhapali Dham ki jai. Mayapur Dham ki jai. Jagannath Pur Dham ki jai. Jagannath Baladev Subhadra Ju ki jai. Ganga Mai, Yamuna Mai ki jai. Vrindavan Dham ki jai. Giri Govardhan, Gupta Govardhan Dham ki jai. Shyam Kund Radha Kund ki jai. Tulsi Devi Bhakti Devi Vrinda Devi ki jai. Jai Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Jai Harinam Sankirtan Yagya ki jai. Scientific Sankirtan Yagya ki jai. Jai Princeton Bhakti Vedanta Institute ki jai. Sri Chaitanya Saraswat Institute ki jai. Sri Chaitanya Saraswat Mat ki jai. Nitai Gaura Premanandi Hari 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 Bo. Jai Srimati Uma Devi Dasi ki jai. Jai Sripad Anant Krishna Prabhu ki jai. Jai Shri Professor Roy ki jai. Hare Krishna.
Jai. Krishna Kesha Prabhu ji ki jai. Dandavad to everyone.
Professor Roy, did you have any other comments or questions about anything? No. Okay. Haribol.